With training camp about 6 weeks away, I thought it would be a good opportunity to take a look at the other 31 teams across the National Football League, look at players that are holding out, and maybe talk about trades that Joe Schoen could make to improve this roster. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Marshall Green. Before we talk about two players that I think the Giants could trade for and absolutely help them pick up some wins this season, my question to you is this. Be honest with me. What would you give for a grade when it comes to the Giants roster? Get out your red pen and be honest with me. Grade the Giants roster as is. A, B, C, D, or F. I want to hear from you in the comment section. When I talk about where I think the Giants lack the most talent, and really the position group that I am worried about the most is still the offensive line. And that's why we're going to talk about Tristan Wirfs, the right tackle that just played left tackle last year for the first year in his NFL career. He is holding out of really all of the offseason workouts for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he would be the number one player that is holding out across the entire landscape of the league as a player that I would like to see the Giants trade for. He is one of the best tackles in the NFL and still just 25 years old. And when you talk about the talent he is, and really the talent that the Giants' offensive line lacks, it is a match made in heaven. Last year was the first year that Wirfs, though, played at that left tackle position, and that is probably why he wants such a major increase in pay, because left tackles, they just get paid more than right tackles. But when it came to the last season, for Wirfs as a Buck, where they did make the playoffs, he allowed just 5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 13 hurries allowed, and had a run-blocking grade of 73.8. Wirfs is recognized across the NFL as one of the better, if not a top 10 offensive lineman in this league, and he is only going to ascend as a player, and he's really been great since the moment he came in to the National Football League. You look at his career PFF grades, he has never been graded out lower than an 81.1 overall for his total offensive grade. 81.8 as a rookie when he played right tackle, then up to 84.6 his second year at right tackle. Then in 2022, 83.8, and then he made that switch to left tackle with an 81.1 overall. He's a better pass blocker than run blocker, one of the best pass blockers in the league. Still a quality run blocker, but he would come in and he would be probably the second best offensive lineman on this team. I'm still going to give the nod to Andrew Thomas, but it would be right there, those two guys being your bookend tackles for this team. The reason he's holding out is because he wants to secure the bag. He wants to get paid like Penei Sewell or Laramie Tunsil, or like our guy, Andrew Thomas, Trent Williams, Jordan Mailata. I'm sure Wirfs wants to be number one on this list, and he's made a quality argument for him to be that. The question is, do the Bucs value him at that number, and will they give him that money? If they don't, maybe they could look to trade him, or maybe the Giants just call him up and say, we're going to give you a really good offer. This was an idea that was talked about in the Chat Sports studios, the Giants giving up a 2025 second-round pick as well as a 2025 third-round pick. We'll also send you Evan Neal, and we get back Tristan Wirfs. The reason I would say that the Bucs probably say no to this deal is because they want a first-round pick in return for Wirfs. The reason that I am not in a spot as the Giants general manager for today's video is because I may be needing to draft a quarterback next year. And it doesn't matter who I have blocking. If I don't have a quarterback, we're not going anywhere, and the Giants need to go out and draft a quarterback in the first round if Daniel Jones does not live up to what I would say is a quarterback that could win a Super Bowl type of season. You don't trade for a quarterback, or you don't sign one in free agency. So I want to hold on to that first-round pick, but I'll give you a priority second-round pick as well as a third-round pick and a project player in Evan Neal. The reason we're talking about this today is because I am extremely worried about the state of the offensive line. We're at the point of the offseason as we record this video on June 17th of, all right, the fun of the draft class has worn off. The trade of Brian Burns has kind of exited our mind a little bit. And with OTAs and mini camp done and training camp at about 5.5 weeks away from starting, it's time to worry about the positions that matter on this team. And remember, the Giants' offensive line, they gave up 85 sacks last year. Did they do enough to become a respectable unit in the offseason for this season? You look at the O-line depth chart, and I'm going to be honest with you, I have no confidence at all in Evan Neal being a starting offensive lineman in this league. He was below average his rookie year, and he was quite honestly terrible in his second year. And if he didn't get hurt last year, I don't think he would be a starter for this team. I think the only reason he is a starter is because he got hurt. And now Joe Schoen's saying, well, we didn't get to see him those final 8 games. Maybe he can turn it around in year 3. Can Carmen Brasillo crack the code of Evan Neal? If I had to bet, I'd say by week 4, Jermaine Illuminor is your starting right tackle. And what's concerning about that is Illuminor is training as a left guard. He has never been a long-term starting left guard in this league, so he's getting no work at that right tackle position, and I think it's more likely than not he is going to be your starting right tackle in the midway point of this year. I like the addition of Runyon. I'm still questionable about John Michael Schmitz. I expect him to take a leap, but when it comes to Evan Neal, that's where it all balances on, and he's shown me nothing through 2 years that he could be a quality starter. I wish they would just move on, make Illuminor the starting right tackle, put Azudu, Stinney, or Schlottman at left guard, but they're not even training Azudu as a guard. He took 0 snaps as a guard throughout the summer. He is pretty much the backup left tackle and right tackle, so he's going to be your swing guy maybe for the next couple of years. What's your confidence level in the Giants O-line? Scale it from 1 to 10. 1 being you're not confident, 10 being you're extremely confident. I'm at about a 3. I don't know if they did enough to improve, because last year was a joke. It was horrible. And nothing matters until you fix the offensive line. Now, I'm not sure the Giants did. We're going to talk about an interior defensive lineman. I would like to see the Giants pursuing a trade that would cost much less than it would for Tristan Wirfs. But first, you need to go to chatsports.com/neighbors. That is chatsports.com/neighbors, and get your Malik Neighbors Giants jersey today so you can have it for week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. I'll make sure that link is clickable in the comments and description of today's show. All right, let's talk about the veteran Cam Heyward, a guy that may just be a Steelers legend, and I don't necessarily see him going anywhere else in his career, but has not showed up to camp. He's 35 years old, coming off a serious injury, and he wants to secure the bag, and we're not so sure if Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to make that happen. Played in just 11 games last year, but still a productive player, and he's been that pretty much throughout his entire career. 33 tackles last year, still had those 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, but in 17 games played in 2022, he had 10.5 sacks and 14 tackles for loss. And the year before that, where he played all 17 games, he had 10 more sacks and 15 tackles for loss. So if he's healthy, if he's available, he's going to go out on the football field and show you the ability that he has, which is just to be a disruptor on the interior parts of the D-line, and that's a second position group, really maybe third. I would go offensive line, corner, and then D-line. Really that DT2 spot. I'd fully trust in Burns and Thibodeau and Lawrence, but still worried about that DT2 position, and that could be Cam Heyward. He's also looking for a major pay upgrade as well. Probably wants to be in this graphic where he's a top 10 highest paid interior defensive lineman. I don't think the Giants are in a spot to give Heyward that type of money. So maybe if the Steelers are looking to trade him, the Giants would just have him as a 1-year rental. He's also 35 years old, so I'm not sure exactly what type of deal he would be expecting. I'm just not in the camp that I want to pay an aging guy that just had his first serious injury a long-term lucrative extension. Good player, and he would help this Giants D-line, right? Especially on the interior. We know Dexter Lawrence is one of the best, if not the best, nose tackles in the NFL. But after that, I just have some serious question marks. Is Rakeem Nunez-Roches ready to be a down-in, down-out starter? Is DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley, the Young Bucks, ready to get it done? Jordan Phillips, you signed him in free agency from the Buffalo Bills. Is he going to be able to contribute? Talk to any Buffalo Bills people, fans, analysts, or anybody, they'll tell you Phillips was no good last year. You went out and got a UDFA Elijah Chapman out of SMU. I'm not so sure what the Giants are going to do at that second defensive tackle spot. They're going to need someone to emerge. And it's about time one of Joe Schoen's late-round picks really starts to crack the code. Whether it's DJ Davidson or Jordan Riley, for his sake, he needs one of them to be a good football player. The reason we're making this video is because just over the weekend, did some deep diving into the roster, looked at some analytics from last year, and the Giants roster right now, I don't want to come up here and do this, but just not good enough. They are a bottom 5 roster in the NFL right now, and they are not good enough to compete in the NFC East. And if you're Brian Dable and if you're Joe Schoen, who should both be feeling the heat of their seat starting to warm up a little bit, you should be concerned about where this roster is. Joe Schoen has been here long enough for him to have his fingerprints on this football team. And I'm just wondering where it is. Like, let's be honest. Is Joe Schoen that guy? And you know what? Maybe this video is a little bit too hard-hitting to be coming on a June 17th morning. But none of his draft picks have become Pro Bowlers. None of his draft picks have become all-pro players. I know he's only got 2 drafts under his belt, but it's just time for his additions, his players, to start helping this football team add wins to the win column. He didn't draft Dexter Lawrence. He didn't draft Daniel Jones. He didn't draft Saquon Barkley. The guys that led that team to the 2022 playoffs were Dave Gettleman's players. You couldn't re-sign Xavier McKinney for whatever the reason may be. You weren't able to re-sign Saquon Barkley for whatever the reasons may be. There's been a lot of talent leave. How much talent has been added? And I love the Brian Burns trade. How much better of a football team does that actually make you? You gave Daniel Jones a horrible contract. You drafted Evan Neal. It doesn't matter if everyone said it was the right move. You're the one that made the move, and it's proven to be the wrong move. Joe Schoen, go back and look at the videos. Joe Schoen was my number 1 candidate to be the general manager for this football team. I don't know. Year 3. Is he the guy? The Giants will absolutely look to the waiver wire to add talent. They've done that really in the first 2 seasons of Joe Schoen's tenure. They made those trades for Isaiah McKenzie and Boogie Basham as well. That was when they were at the later part of the waiver wire order because they made the playoffs. This year they'll be at the top since they were absolutely terrible last year. And maybe they go out and add a couple of good players that get cut from other teams. But you can't just be the team that feeds off of other teams' scraps. I like the addition of Jason Pinnock. There's some other moves. Nick McLeod, Isaiah Hodgins. At the end of the day, Giants need primetime players. Just not sure how many of those guys are actually on this roster and ones that actually Joe Schoen has added. Is Joe Schoen the right guy for the job? I'm not saying if he doesn't make these trades, he's not the right guy. I think there's plenty of other things you could point to that at least raise question marks. Just still give him time, but it's time to start producing. And it's time for the players that you've added to this roster to start being productive. Y for yes, M for no. Make sure you are following me over on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on IG. If you disagree, let's chat about it. Hit me up over there.